Hey guys, I'm Charles Neal. I get a lot of emails about finishing. One is runs and drips. How do you take care of them? And FishEyes. We'll show you what they are. Most everybody knows what a run is, but we're going to create one. We're just going to create some runs and some drips, sort of make a mess. That's a pretty good run. Now, we're going to let this dry, then I'm going to show you how to take care of it. Now, one of the easiest ways, when you spray something, if you've got a run or a drip, don't spray it and then just walk away. Keep an eye on it. If you've got one, in this case, this is water-based. We're using a water-based finish. If you get a run, the easiest way to do it with water is you want a good synthetic brush, not natural hair. A natural hair brush in water doesn't do real well. Have you ever, you wash your hair and it kind of gets a little frizzy and whatever? Well, it's the same thing. If you're using a solvent base, then you do want a natural hair. But if you get a run, the easiest way to take care of it is take that nice brush, try to catch it before it sets up. If it's starting to set up on you, dip it in the finish just a little bit. Make sure if you're using water, make sure you wet your brush with some water first. And what you want to do is just gently pull the run out the very best you can. Here's the issue. When you have a run, the hard part is where the run gets thick, because it's going to be a whole lot slower drying and everything. And you've got this massive thickness there. Leveling that becomes an issue. If you take the brush, even though you're going to maybe have a few brush marks when you're done, it's a whole lot easier to work it out. That's preventive. If you get a run, try to brush it out. And again, using whatever solvent that the product you're using utilizes. If you're spraying a lacquer, use some lacquer thinner and you can kind of redissolve it and pull it out. If you're using shellac, same thing. Use a little alcohol, kind of try to smooth it out. Water, or the finish. And if you can't, it's going to be hard to show you this on camera. This is flowing out now and the run is all but disappearing. And in many cases, the run will disappear. But worst case scenario, it's going to be a whole lot easier to fix if you can smooth it out the best you can. But let's create one I think that'll do. We're going to let it dry. Here's what you got. When you get a run, now we've got a couple issues here. The first issue we have is if you look right here, you see that run is dark. Now here's what happened. Just to do this sample, what I did was I put on a water-based dye. Let it dry. Then I put a water-based finish over top of it with a brush. You saw me. What's happening is the water-based finish is redissolving the water-based dye. Now, I've written about this in the blog. I've written about it in the newsletter. The term is called like on like. And it's exactly what it refers to. You've got the colorant and the top coat are the same solvent base, in this case water. So one will dissolve the other. Now, I shouldn't say it like that. The top coat will dissolve the colorant. The colorant's not going to dissolve the top coat once it's dry. Now, so what happens is we get color. A good way to prevent that is to put down about a half to a 1 pound cut of shellac. Probably a 1 pound cut. A good coat of an amber or whatever color shellac you want, just make sure it's de-waxed. Shellac. What that does is that creates a barrier between the colorant and the finish so that it can't redissolve it. Got that? Now, the way you deal with the run all depends upon at what stage it occurs. You get it. What am I talking about? If you get a run in the first coat, the problem you're going to encounter is that you don't have anything to sand. If you take a block or anything else and you start sanding, what's going to happen is in all probability, you're going to remove the color around the run or around the drip. Make sense? Now, a block is if you're going to sand, a block is the best way to do it because it's going to pick up the high spot first. But you have to be very careful because otherwise you're going to start removing color. Another good way to deal with it is to simply take a double-edged razor blade and like you were using a scraper, simply scrape it. Get the worst off. Notice I said get the worst off. Try to get the high, as much of it as you can, but don't take the color around it. Then, now this is going to sound like the dumbest thing you ever heard, but think about it. Then put more finish on it. Now this is a dry run. The reason is, put more finish on, you now have something to sand. Think of it like grading a road. If you've got potholes and you've got everything kind of nasty in here, you want to come in and if you've just got a little bit of gravel, you can't get all them potholes full. Or if you try to take the top off of it, you're going to take the surface off and you still kind of got the potholes. Sort of like that. If you've got high spots, you can't knock the high spot down level with the low spot, which is the surface. So what you have to do is you have to build it up a little bit so you have something to sand. Got that? Now, here's the other thing. Just like we talked about when you're scuff sanding this chest, we were scuffing this chest. If you take a real fine sandpaper and you try to do it, again, the more you have to work this, the more likely you are to cut through it. A little coarser paper to grade that run out is a good thing. I've had cases where I got a run and it looked a whole lot. Yeah, that's a run. I've had curtains. It's been a while, but it happens. Here's the thing. You got to again, I'm going to repeat myself. You got to make sure you've got enough material around it to give you something to be able to grade it off. Runs, drips are the same thing. Got that? Now, let's assume you get it in the second coat or the third coat. Well, you've already got material there. Again, the best way to handle it is brush it out, let it dry, sand it, and respray it. Okay, just make sure you don't go through. Fish eyes. Now, I created some in this, but unfortunately they're not really showing real well. And the reason they're not is because I didn't get dark enough. What a fish eye is it's a surface contamination that when the finish goes on, it wants to separate around it. And it looks like the eye of a fish. The finish will build up around it, but it doesn't take to it. And it's typically what happens is it's usually a silicone or a wax contamination. All right, how do you deal with them? The first thing is, what you want to do is you want to clean your material well. Now, naphtha is an excellent product for removing surface contamination. I actually prefer naphtha over mineral spirits, which does a good job. The reason is that the mineral spirits dries a lot slower. So if you're cleaning raw wood, it takes a while for that to evaporate. And if you're doing water-based, you want to make sure that all of that mineral spirits has evaporated. Naphtha evaporates much faster. Clean it good. Now, when you're cleaning it, you want to put a good wet coat, then take a good clean cloth and clean it off. Even if you've got the fish eyes, as long as it hasn't affected your color, if it's affected your color, then it's back up and start over for the most part. The other thing you can do, clean it good with naphtha. If you need to, take some shellac. You notice you hear a lot talk about de-waxed shellac. Think about that. Shellac, until it's refined, has some wax in it. That means shellac is compatible with wax. And it will typically go over the top of it and seal it off. Okay? So if you got fish eyes, when it's clean, stop, clean it good. Try a little spot and see if you got it. If you don't, then a little light coat of shellac usually will take care of it. If it don't, start over. Now, let me say something. When you're in your shop and you're finishing something and you've got waxes, especially furniture polishes like Pledge and these kind of things, and products that have silicone in them, lubricants, they can just play murder on your finish. If you take something and you use Armor All or whatever outside your garage door, and just the little bit of mist that comes from it and it blows into your shop, it can drive you nuts and you'll never get rid of it. Go easy on anything that has a silicone, oil, grease, whatever. Again, the waxes, same thing. When you wax something and you're buffing it off, think about it. All those little dry dust particles, they get in your shop and can contaminate. So all of that being said, try to have a little separate place that's not going to happen for you.